Hey, good morning, y'all. Josh's Severe Weather. Happy Thursday to you. Hope everybody's having a great week. Thank you for joining me this morning. We've got some pretty intense weather showing up on some of our models to talk about here. Tropics, fire weather in the Northeast and Eastern Canada, severe weather, and a pattern change coming. So I'm going to try to drill all that down for you guys. Longer term forecasting, as you guys know, is quite the challenge for us here in the weather business, but I'm going to do my very best to try to break it all down for you. First is first, we have seen from the GFS model getting out beyond 10 days, multiple runs showing a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. Why is this exact hit on New Orleans unlikely? I'm going to show you that in just a little bit. We are definitely going to see more activity in the Western Caribbean over the coming weeks, and I'm going to break that down. But pinning down where exactly it goes right now is just way too soon. The GFS model is the only model that goes out operationally beyond 10 days. And as a result, we see image after image of storms in the Gulf of Mexico that look very threatening. Could a storm form in the Gulf of Mexico in June? I think it is certainly possible, but we've got a lot of time before we can even make that call at this point. So I'm going to break that down here in just a little bit. First things first, we are going to see a temperature flip here coming across the U.S. We are going to see our big trough in the east and our trough in the southwest breaking down. And next week, we've got a warmer than average week expected over the south central and deep southern parts of the United States, while the cooler than average weather does get wiped out as well across the Midwest and the Mid-South. We are trending towards hotter weather and perhaps some pretty intense heat over parts of Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas here in the next 10 days or so. And as we go on to the end of the month of June, we see much of the country is running on the warmer side, near average across the Great Lakes and Northeast, and beginning to warm up some across California. As we get into July, right now, modeling shows, again, most of the country is going to be on the warm side with a heat wave expected here over parts of the plains and maybe a heat wave over California from time to time. So much of the country is going to be running above average. Now, that warmer than average weather in the southern and eastern United States does favor a buildup of water temperatures near the waters of the Gulf and the East Coast. And as a result, we may see more of a draw towards seeing storms heading into July and August closer to the United States. But a lot is going to be happening between now and then. Here's a look at precipitation, and you can see we are in for a very busy pattern over the central part of the country, extending into the mid-Atlantic region here by next week, and a drier pattern along the Gulf Coast. And this means high pressure aloft is going to build in, and that certainly could set up more of a potential to see something in the Gulf of Mexico here in the following weeks towards the end of June. And then what could be a pretty stormy pattern here taking shape. Let me, sorry, I got to get some controls up on my screen. But let me show you what I'm concerned about. You've got this high pressure region in here, and that is going to draw moisture up and around it. And on the top of this, we see what could be a very active storm track over this portion of the country here heading into the end of the month of June. Let me, I wish I could make that wider for you guys here. Anyway, I'm going to clear it off. We'll bring it back here later on. As we get into the 4th of July timeframe and beyond, we see an active pattern across the Great Lakes and the Northeast. Certainly some welcome rain for a lot of you that are dealing with the smoke right now. And this certainly is a little bit more favorable for an area that definitely could use more rain. If you saw my videos last month, you knew I was talking about a shorter term drought across this region. I did talk about that some. That has certainly been the case, but now we can see a more active pattern as storms ride up and over the ridge here. And certainly we've got the potential to see what could be a derecho at some point in here. Not trying to scare everybody, but certainly that possibility as we get through climatology, get to that time of year where that is more possible, that could be the case as well. All right, as we take a look here at the upper level pattern in the coming days, a couple things draw my attention first, and let me bring my pencil back here. Sorry, I'm using Zoom here. It's great sometimes. But we see a big trough of low pressure here across the Northeast. That has been responsible for bringing in all the smoke from the wildfires in Quebec. There's wildfires in Alberta as well, and those have traveled up and over. So all the smoke has made its way into the Northeast here. What we see, though, is upper level low here in the Southwest, upper level low in the Northeast. And as time goes on, we see that that is going to progress, where the trough in the west is going to send faster wind flow aloft into the southern plains here next week around Tuesday and Wednesday. This obviously is more concerning for a potential severe weather outbreak, including tornadoes here into the first half of next week over places like Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, Kansas, North Texas, and eventually maybe into the mid-Atlantic region as well. Much faster wind flow aloft. This is what you would typically see in May, but things have been delayed based on the change in the weather patterns that we've seen with this block over parts of eastern Canada that's brought the colder weather to the eastern U.S. Now that block is moving away, and that's allowing a much faster wind flow aloft. So we are going to see multiple outbreaks of severe weather coming up here next week and beyond into next weekend. Interestingly, I'll show you that in a little bit, but we've got a high pressure region taking place over the south, and where that breaks down and a trough in between two upper level ridges, we do see potential tropical trouble here in between the two, but this is just one model run. Really tough to make that call at this point. Here's a look at the smoke in the Northeast. It's been very bad, especially yesterday, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York. We see another surge of smoke later on today here. This is around lunchtime. Coming down across Ontario. So Toronto and Hamilton are going to be in some nasty smoke. Central Pennsylvania, southwestern New York here. We could see some improvement slowly across New York and Long Island, but it will still be pretty thick into this evening. And then tonight, that band shifts south and east, and we see some improvement tomorrow, although smoke could be pretty nasty continuing around the Chesapeake Bay and Delmarva region and the DMV here tomorrow afternoon. We also see some of that smoke pushing back into Michigan tomorrow morning. So we are going to continue to see very unhealthy air quality here over the next couple of days. But the one thing I am showing you here is that the worst of it looks to be coming to an end in time for the weekend around New York City, Philadelphia, New Jersey, and even around Ontario, Southwest Ontario. While there will still be poor air quality, it does improve some according to this model here as we get on into the weekend. All right, we're going to talk about the tropics now. El Nino, we have warming that has persisted over the last 2 weeks, and now the ONI, the Oceanic Nino Index, is close to 1 degree Celsius above average. This all but pretty much guarantees that we're into an El Nino now, and how quickly this climbs is going to play out as to what we're going to see later this hurricane season and then into next winter. Water temperatures, surface water temperatures are running on the warm side, especially closer to South America here in the El Nino regions. Pretty much everybody is now running hot. However, we still have colder than average temperatures off of California and colder than average temperatures off of the East Coast. So there are some variations here, but much of the Atlantic Basin is running hot. You can see a close-up of that. The Gulf is running warm, except for the northeastern shelf, but the Western Gulf is running warm. Caribbean is very warm. The main development region is warm, and the Canary Current is still running a couple degrees Celsius above average. This is where cooler water gets sent down the down the African coast, but it is not as cool as what is common. So that could certainly favor a better formation chance this tropical season for above average activity potentially. The next 7 days are quiet. We had a disturbance that never really got going here near the Azores. It was a 10%. I thought maybe it could try to happen, but it hasn't. And that upper level low is now moving away from the Azores towards Portugal. We've got a lot of moisture feeding through the Western Caribbean, but a lot of wind shear here aloft. And I will share that with you guys here. Strong trough moving across the Gulf of Mexico. This is drawing moisture out of the Pacific. This is the intertropical convergence zone here. That moisture is getting drawn northeastward. Due to the high wind shear, we don't see tropical development likely anytime in the next 10 days. But what we do see, gosh, I want to make this a different color. We do see is a lot of moisture here. The eastern half of Cuba, western Haiti, southeastern Bahamas, Turks, Caicos, and Jamaica are all seeing a very wet start to the month of June. In fact, some flooding potential here continuing in these areas. and that could turn deadly. It already has in parts of Haiti, unfortunately. My thoughts and prayers are with those residents that are dealing with this kind of extreme weather. At the same time, we've got a massive region of high pressure that is leading to extremely dry air here over the islands and over Puerto Rico. Very hot weather in place here. We've got a big trough over the eastern United States that is feeding this wind shear that is going to continue to kill off any tropical potential over the Gulf. But as we get on into later next week and the following weekend, this trough retrogrades and we see fast wind flow here, but that allows this high pressure region to set up shop here over this area. And where that high pressure zone ends up being, we're going to watch the weakness in between to see if there's any tropical potential for that. Let me get this off the screen here and move you on to the next graphic. Here is the current look at the Atlantic Basin. We do have some waves coming off of Africa. They're bringing lots of rain in, but they're all dying before they get to the Lesser Antilles here. Just way too much dry air in place across this region. This is the Madden-Julian oscillation. I've shown this in the last few graphics. It is currently in phase 8, but is forecast to move from the Australian model into phase 1 and then phase 2. When it gets to phase 2, we see a better chance for storm development closer to the United States, a better chance for landfalling storms. And according to this model, that looks like it's going to happen around the 20th. But you can see there's still a very great amount of uncertainty as to how intense that could be. If it gets down to here, then obviously we've got more potential tropical development closer to the U.S. Here's a look at the GFS from last night's model run, and you can see definitely a lot of moisture coming in through the Western Caribbean here over the next 10 days. We do see low pressure forming around the 16th east of Nicaragua, 1,007 millibar system. And then next weekend, we do see something developing and spinning up very quickly over the Western Caribbean. While this is certainly a possibility, the GFS model has over time shown a bias for storms developing way too quickly and getting too intense. However, the GFS was upgraded last fall. It's done a better job. It was the model that pinned down all of those storms that other models were showing going through the southeast. It took everything up through the Great Lakes. That's why we got gypped on snow over the winter. So I am very curious to see if this is going to play out. Will it play out exactly this way? Probably not. This run here does show probably a Category 1 hurricane coming into the Texas coast. But I have seen some data out there that supports potentially something in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, let me make this a little bit smaller for you guys here. The GFS model is obviously the only model that operationally goes beyond 10 days. I'm going to show this to you. I mean, this is publicly available. You can see it anywhere you'd like. This model yesterday afternoon showed a hurricane hitting New Orleans. The model run after it shows it farther west into Texas. The model run beyond that is showing it back towards New Orleans and actually quite intense here around the 20th. So we're seeing consistency in the model taking this storm system towards the central and western Gulf states. We have seen that now multiple runs in a row. Not a lot of exact certainty on the location of where it's going to be and quite how strong it's going to be, but it is shown at model run after model run. And obviously that's got a lot of people's attention. However, the GFS model has no skill in predicting exact location or exact intensity for a storm, especially this strong, more than 8-9 days out. In fact, even 5 days out, the GFS last year had Hurricane Ian coming up into the Pensacola area or Panama City. It ended up hitting near Cape Coral. So again, I'm going to show it to you guys because it is possible, but I don't think it's the likeliest scenario. However, now's a good time to get ready if you're in the Gulf Coast states, because certainly we've already seen one quick moving storm off of Florida. We had a lot of rain in Florida last week. We saw the storm impacting the southeast on Memorial Day weekend. We've already seen impact, so it's not going to take a lot to get something going. Maybe a whale's fart, I guess. This is Hurricane Audrey, 1957. This is just one extreme storm that has formed, but after Audrey, we have not seen a storm that strong hitting the western Gulf states. It made landfall here late June 1957 near the Louisiana-Texas border. So it has happened, but for the GFS to forecast that right now, I think is a little bit far-fetched. So we'll keep an eye on it. The ensembles show the wind shear here still very strong across the Gulf of Mexico, but it does start to relax next weekend, and we see much lower wind shear on the ensembles here over this region here by the 19th and 20th. So is it possible? Certainly. Is it likely? Again, way too soon to make that call. We're just going to have to stay tuned at this point. The European does show our high pressure region aloft here over the southeastern U.S., so it's going to get hotter. We're going to see air mass thunderstorms. We do see some lower wind shear in this region, but you can see on the European right now, the reason the European is not developing any named storm is because it's got a strong area of wind shear right across the southern Gulf, right across the northwestern Caribbean, which would spell doom for any kind of hurricane development. Showed you guys the GFS, again, trying to take it up into Texas or Louisiana. I mean, yeah, it's certainly possible, but right now, way too soon to make that call. Now, we do have two storms that are a guarantee. This is one cyclone here. This is Bukal here, east of the Philippines over the Philippine Sea. And this storm has intensified significantly. It is coming into the area south of where we had Mawar here about a week and a half ago, but it is going to go into pretty warm waters here. Now, the track of this typhoon, fortunately, makes a right turn here in the next 24 hours, well east of the Philippines and Taiwan, and then staying east of Japan. The intensity forecast right now, according to the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, has it up to 105 millibars, then hitting cooler waters. I do personally think it may get over 110 miles per hour, but I don't think it's going to be nearly as strong as Mawar was here a week and a half ago. But it is a recurving typhoon, and that could certainly continue to enhance that threat for severe weather over the southern U.S. here going into the last week of June. So this could actually, if it stays strong enough, could actually play into what we see potentially in the Gulf in 2 weeks. If this storm recurves and that jet stream is faster, then that's going to break down the ridge. It's going to mean it won't be as hot, and it's going to lead to stronger wind shear in the Gulf states, which is what we want to see if we want to avoid a major hurricane hit on the Gulf Coast. So the GFS, I'm sure, sees this storm, but I don't think that it has a very good amount of skill in seeing how that teleconnection is going to potentially affect the weather here in the U.S. here in a couple of weeks. Here's where the ensembles take it, well east of Japan, well over the central, north central Pacific. And even though it'll be weaker, it'll still be intense enough to bend the jet stream and lead to faster wind flow aloft. And that could mean more severe weather as well towards the end of the month of June and beginning of July. Here's where the GFS takes the storm, and you can see it's going to make a right turn here in the next 24 hours. It's going to go south and east of Okinawa, south and east of Japan, and start weakening with pressures back up over 980 as it loses its tropical characteristics here on Tuesday of next week. Here's a look at a new cyclone that has formed in the Arabian Sea, Cyclone Biparjoy. This is from cyclonicwx.com. And has winds around 90 to 95 miles per hour. It is fighting some wind shear, as you guys can see here, but it is continuing to grow, and models continue to intensify this system, although some of the models have started to back off on how strong it looks like it'll be. Now, the concern with this system is, first of all, could it get really strong? And that is certainly a possibility. Second of all, where's it going to end up going? This is the Gulf of Oman here, and the GFS has shown it coming up and hitting Oman. Other models have shown it more towards Pakistan and even Western India. The Western India threat looks like it is going to start to wane. And in fact, we are going to see on the GFS here a track more towards the Gulf of Oman as a 945 millibar cyclone. So that'll be a severe cyclone, probably about a Category 3 to Category 4 type hurricane. As the storm gets into these waters of the Gulf of Oman, it hits cooler waters as it's moving slowly. It is likely to weaken here more significantly in about a week or so, or in about 6 days. The HWRF model shows it as a 942 millibar strong cyclone, even into the 930s, and it has it tracking towards Oman. This would be a very bad situation for Oman. Even though it will weaken as it makes landfall Monday, this is kind of shortcutting it towards Oman. The ICON model, on the other hand, has an intense cyclone, but it is not taking that turn off to the north and west nearly as strong. This one has a 921 millibar, what would be close to a Category 5 extreme typhoon, or I guess cyclone. We don't have typhoons in the Indian Ocean. But instead of taking it left towards Oman, it starts to slow it down and try to turn it northeast towards Pakistan. This would be really bad for Pakistan. So we've got four nations that are watching this with bated breath right now, from Oman to Iran to Pakistan to India. We still don't know exactly where it's going to go as the models continue to struggle with the steering currents here in the Arabian Sea next week. Best case scenario is that it heads northeast towards India and then hits cooler waters and falls apart slowly. But I have been reading journals on this saying that these strong cyclones early in the season, the one we had in the Bay of Bengal, Mocha last month, and now this one, are going to lead to a delay in the onset of the monsoon season across southern Asia. And that could have major ramifications agriculturally as well as geographically and climatologically. So yeah, a lot of crazy stuff happening here. All we can really do is sit and wait. We can't make any crazy bold predictions this far out. We just have to keep watching. And if you want to join me again tomorrow morning, I appreciate that. I'm going to again talk about the tropical systems and the tropical potential. We're likely going to continue to see a GFS hurricane in the Gulf showing up for several more days. The only time I'm really going to be concerned about it is if it shows it and we're now less than a week out. We still got time before that happens. And really all you can do is just start preparing. Don't cancel anything. Don't freak out. Just keep an eye on things right now. A lot of meteorologists believe that that bias is going to go away. I'm not so sure that's the case, but I will continue to track it for you guys. Thank you for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please share with your friends. Consider subscribing to my channel as well. I appreciate that. And as always, I want to give all the glory to God, who has given me the gift to do this as a Christian man, to share my faith with you, to share meteorology with you, to share the science that I believe God has put me on earth to do. It's what he's called me to do. And I'm not ashamed of that. Romans 1:16, Paul tells the church of Rome, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. For therein is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith. As it is written, the just shall live by faith." And Paul tells everybody, I'm not ashamed to share this good news with everybody. The power of God unto salvation of every believer. That means everybody who believes in Jesus Christ will be saved eternally and given eternal life. Even the Jew, even the Greek, even the non-believer has been given this gift. All they have to do is accept that gift. God is revealed from faith to faith, and those who decide to believe, who believe in the unseen, will be given that eternal life. And that is wonderful news. That is why I am alive, why God has put me on earth, to give me the gift that I can accept. I accepted it 10 years ago, and I pray that you have as well. If you have not, I'm not going to judge you. That's up to God completely. If you choose to go out and believe by sight and not faith, again, that is your personal choice. But I want to encourage you, if you want to have more in your life and to have an afterlife, I want to encourage you to seek, like I did, the salvation, the gift of God through Jesus Christ. Thank you all so much for your time today. If you have any prayer requests, I would love to pray for you, and we'll chat again tomorrow morning. Have a blessed day. See you then.